Alright, today's workshop is for the Canon 7D. It is a DSLR prosumer based camera that also can be used for video. Tonight's workshop is going to be for using it as a video camera rather than as a DSLR camera. My name is Ryan Sermonera. I work at the College Technology as an admin assistant for the College Technology, so any random emails you get are probably from me. But also off of that I do a bunch of side work stuff for a company I'm in, FitCycle, and then for another one for HTM Photo. FitCycle is going to be the one that's going to be a lot more video production based. I've done weddings, I've done just random concert things, I've done event type of stuff. Really just anything that's going to be coverage for my external stuff. A lot of the stuff that I've been doing lately for weddings and everything have been based off of the 7D and getting away from other cameras like the XHA1 that the school offers and getting into this so that I can offer a little bit more of a higher quality product for my customer that's coming to me. The Canon 7D came out in September of 2009, so it's a little old. It's just past its 2-year mark. It's one of the cameras that helped to really push for the video. It does use a crop sensor compared to other Canon cameras that are out, like the 5D Mark II. The 5D Mark II and the 1D Mark IV and the 1DX that are coming out are going to enable for a little bit more audio-based control that the 7D does not offer for video. They all shoot the same quality though, and the 7D is going to be one that's going to excel a little bit more, even from the 5D Mark II, which is about $800 more expensive. The 7D is still the one that gives you the higher video quality. The camera has been used in a lot of bigger projects. The 5D Mark II was used to film the season finale of House for not last season but the season beforehand. The 7D was used for Black Swan, which had Natalie Portman in it, so all the subway scenes that they had. The guy was actually using a Canon 22mm 1.8 and no rig or anything, just wanted the camera itself right at the back of Natalie Portman's head with a light above her for a little bit of a reflection. All those shots were this. So definitely quality is really up there. It's a really cheap camera to get into and the quality is superb. The stuff that I'm using on here is I have a Handy Base X shoulder rig, which is where my shoulder is. There's also a part for weights. So if you want to weigh it up, you have a lot of stuff on. So when you're using a lens like this, you might want something to counterbalance yourself. But that's not really present for this. Not really anything that's really needed. I've got a 7-inch monitor that is made by Marshall, so I can preview everything on here. I've got a 7200 2.8 lens, and then I've got just a microphone so I can record something that is not off of the camera itself. But I want to show you a quick video that we did using the Canon 7D and also a Sony NEX FS100 for the 48 Hour Film Festival. The 7D was the primary that we used for it, and just helps you get a little bit more of an understanding of what we used and what it was quality-wise versus what you would get from some other cameras. One of the things that I found you have to be a little careful with when you're doing your video, on the 7D at least, is we go into our menu, wait for it to pop. If you have a lens that, like the kit lens, that comes with it, the 28-135, and now they have the 18-135 f4. The image stabilizer on there, if you're shooting video and you're recording audio straight from the camera itself, you're going to hear the motor. For a music video, that's not going to matter so much because you're going to more or less just OEM everything, drop that audio out. But if you're actually using it, because your microphone's literally right here, and your lens sits, an inch away from it, that motor, you're going to hear that for it. But let's see, when we're in here, silent shooting, you actually want to disable that because that runs another motor inside the camera to make it quieter so you don't have the beeping and all that stuff, and then that protrudes onto your video. So that's definitely one of the big things that you want to quickly disable. Getting away from there, so going through everything else that's going to be inside of here, everything's really going to be up to you with what your settings are and what you want to include. One of the big things that's rather nice is when you're looking at your movie record size, when you're in 1080p, you can do it in 30 frames, 24 frames, or 60. If you want to do anything through Twixtor, that type of stuff, and you want to have slow motion type of thing, do it in 60, just because then you have more frames to work with. If you want that cinema type of feel, do it in 24, otherwise 30 is really going to be your safe bet. The higher the frame rate is, so at 60, the more light you're going to need to expose for your sensor. So if you're also dealing with lower light, shooting at 24 usually helps a little bit more with that. When you're shooting in 720p, you can only do 60 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And same thing with standard definition, it's only 60. Now one of the big downfalls of this is when you're shooting in HD, you can only shoot it 12 minutes at a time. If you do shoot it in 480 at 60 frames, you can shoot for 28 minutes. So a nice little tip there if you are shooting anything event-wise, and you know if it's a wedding, you're not giving that client anyway, you know, a Blu-ray disc, you're giving them a DVD. So save yourself a little bit of render time and shoot it in SD regardless. And then you have a little bit more time that you can play with. Because that's definitely one of the big things that I know the 70s really plagued on, is that auto shut off. I don't want to be in for its heat. It can get really hot depending on where you're shooting. We've done videos for St. John the Beloved for their sports teams, and if I'm outside shooting a soccer game, give it 40 minutes and this camera's pretty much down for the count. So really knowing what your surroundings is and just planning ahead for it. So when I've done St. John the Beloved stuff after that, I'll take 2 hats and I'll throw them over the top of it to help the sun not hit it as much, and then shoot it with a longer lens. That way I'm not getting the hat in my shot or anything, but the hat's then absorbing the heat for me instead of the camera absorbing the heat. So I mean there's little things like that that you're going to want to go through for it. But one of the things too, I gave Ed my 50mm lens, and for that one, you don't have to bring it over. It's one of the cheaper lenses that you can really get into for the 7D. That's going to really up your quality above what the kit lens is. And to the point where that lens almost became my standard lens as it is. Kim has one too, so. Yeah, the Nifty 50. It's a small little tyke. It's used to be $99 because of it being bought so much, it inflated up to $129. You can buy it at Ritz Cameras, etc., B&H Photo, Amazon, wherever. Price is going to be consistent, but it's a tiny little guy. It's a prime lens. It only does 50mm, so if you want that wide shot, this lens is not it for you. But usually when you're doing video, anything like that, and you have a control of the situation, you can move as you need to so that you can get the shot properly. And there's a lot of times where it's not going to work for you and you're going to be incredibly close. People on the lens won't do it, but for everything else, especially for anything where you're getting your B-roll and stuff and you really want that depth of field, you can use this, drop it to 1.8, pull an amazing rack focus off of it, and be pretty well off for under, you know, $150. And it's going to be something that's really going to help if you're in a class, anything like that, and if you have a Canon 7D, and if you're in Com 423 or whatever, anything that's studio production related, and the instructor's asking you to shoot a video, use a 1.8, get that quality up there, and you're just going to set yourself above what your other students are. And not to say that that's going to help overlook the flaws of editing or whatever, but it's kind of going to help overlook the flaws of editing. Because if you're out of focus and your next shot picks up out of focus, you now have continuity between the 2 shots, and you just set it up perfectly to jump between one shot to the next shot without planning for it. Going from there, do you guys have any questions about this camera? Yeah, the camera itself is 1800. This guy that I've got right here, for the full rig, I don't have the whole thing on here, it was 1400. This monitor was about 550. The microphone was about 250, and then this lens, if you buy it new, is about 2400. But you don't have to shoot with all that stuff. I made a mention earlier that in the movie Black Swan with Natalie Portman, they shot all the subway scenes using a 7D and a lens. They didn't have any other rigs, any of that stuff on there. They're just holding the camera itself because it can get so wide with some of the lenses. They're using a 24mm 1.8. That lens is about $1,000, but you can definitely find Tamrons and other ones that are a little bit cheaper for you. Namely, the Tokina 11 to 16 2.8 runs about $650, and it's a borderline fisheye for you, but also extreme wide that you can use, and you can get amazing quality out of it. And something like that you can still use. And obviously, when you have a Hollywood type of budget, you know, $1,100 or so for a lens isn't anything to them, but for us, it takes a while to build up to get that stuff. But even still, I let Ed take the 50mm that I've got on his camera now. That lens is $130. Was it last summer or the summer beforehand, Jeff, when we did Monument? It was about a year ago.
Yeah, I remember.
We shot a short film called Monument, shot the entire thing on that lens. So for $130, and I can probably actually find that, just to show a couple clips of that too. But the quality of it is cheap. And for under $2,000, you can easily have something for video that's going to really push your video up a lot higher. And there are limitations to it with the auto shutoffs and everything for when you're recording audio. They're kind of going to be, but like this type of a shot with that 1.8.
This journal entry cites my work.
So we can have stuff where we're getting those leaves blown out and everything, and it's not like we have all this stuff really separated, like you would almost have to do with the XHA1 or the HMC 150, so you can pull that depth of field off. It's a tree, all that stuff is literally right there, right in front of us, and we're able to pull off a shot to where we can have that bottle in focus, nothing in the background of the focus, just wash it all out. Same thing for
his own crime committed on
get away from this stuff.
28 of this.
There we go. And so this type of stuff is where we can really use what the camera does and pull off really, really pretty shots. And we showed earlier from this one, I'm sorry, Jeff, we're going to do it to you now. Another thing is that since this camera is using, it's a DSLR, it's a picture camera, that just so happens to also shoot video, and video really, really well. One of the things that it's really plagued by is the sensor that it's using, since it's a photo-based sensor. When you have your sync at 1/250, if I'm not hitting that, or even if I'm going too far up, my shutter's not opening and closing fast enough. So if you have anything that's really going to hit the sensor, you're going to have a weird effect, and it's going to cause amazing rolling shutter across it. So in these scenes, literally we lit with a flashlight, and we shot with this lens. It's a 2.8 70-200. But that's just a flashlight that's over top of him, and then we're running strobes from DSLR cameras in the background. There was 2 of them going off in different directions, and that's why you have that flash across the screen. So you can give you a really neat effect. And when you come forward a little bit more to when poor Jeffrey is inside the chair, it's right here. You can play with it, have your actor do something weird. It looks like they're just kind of moving all around, and give you that really stroby type of a look for that really, really creepy type of a thing. And then you kill Jeff at the end of it, and now he's back here. I have no idea, zombie week or something. But so that's that. And then, so once you shoot your video, all that stuff is done. dropping your footage from this compared to an HHA1. Now, an HMC 150 is going to be very similar. And since you have used that, you're going to know a little bit more for this stuff. Let's get this guy out of the way. We're just going to use a USB cable. Plug it right into the back. Alright. Let's see, let's grab this guy, shoot something real fast. We'll come up to Kim. And then we'll stop the recording. Alright. If you have a card reader, you can use that. Since we don't have one handy, we won't. And then we're literally going to plug it in and drop it as if we were dropping from a DSLR camera. So it's going to happen a lot more real time than what would happen for you if you were running off of the tape, which is kind of cool. Now, one of the big things that's going to be a lot nicer on your HMC 150s and even the Sony NEX cam that we're using is the file sizes that I was recording into are much, much, much smaller than what a Canon 75D Mark II or 1D Mark IV are going to do. Only because since they're set up to do video they're recording in a proper codec port, these cameras do not. Out of a 32 gig card, you can expect to get about an hour worth of footage. On any of those other cameras from a 32 gig card, you can expect to get about 2 hours and 30 minutes. So there's a considerable amount more of a difference, and you're going to start filling up a hard drive a little bit faster when you're using them this way.
I have an 8 gig card and I can go for an hour on this camera.
Yeah. You'll go for about 20 minutes. Alright. So I'm just going to open up image capture. If you're using a Mac, as default, it's going to open up iPhoto. Do not capture through iPhoto. It will compress your video files on you and lay its own codec down. And then you just have not as clean of footage as what you're going to have pulling off of here normally. So, pull into here, and image capture, just select my Canon 7D. We'll select all 4 movies that we have on there. Import 2. Just make a quick little folder up. Pictures, sure. Choose, and then import all. Instead of having to watch it back in real time, I was just going to transfer it for us as if it's coming from a hard drive to a hard drive, which you guys are both going to know already, and the HMC 150 is still going to capture that same way. So, wait for this final clip to finish for us. We got them all in. Documents, and then went into our photos. There we go. And so if we had set this up a little more properly, and then we'll start. So, very quick, very simple, very streamlined to get it onto here. And then getting it into Final Cut is really up to you. I would transfer my footage from this and re-encode it into a different codec. Namely, I would transfer it into Apple ProRes 422 HQ and a proxy file for 422 as well. And the reason I would transfer it out to the two is because when you're doing anything with a ProRes 422 high quality, it's going to give you really, really big video files. And that's not really cool, especially when you're dealing with an iMac or anything like that, especially if you have a laptop or something smaller that you're using as your main computer. Those video files are big. And Final Cut, especially if you're dealing with Final Cut 7, is still 32-bit. It's only utilizing 3 gigs of your RAM, and so is the rest of your stuff. You're not utilizing that 8 gig DDR3 that new iMacs are coming with. So you are already at this little tiny portion of the pie, and you're trying to take this big monster, throw it in there, and say, all right, cool, go do it, don't lag on me because you're a new computer and you shouldn't be doing that. Well, these are really big video files. So if you send it into proxy, it's going to take all that video, and it's going to keep that quality there for you, and you're still going to see it when you're in Final Cut, but it's going to make it a lot smaller. So import everything as your proxy file, edit all of that, disconnect your media when you're in Final Cut, when you have everything finished, and then reconnect it as your high quality file. The file names, all that stuff is still going to stay the same, but the type of file that it is different. And that's when you're going to have all your quality and everything actually there for you. So your editing process is going to be a lot faster. And you're going to get that really nice, pretty product that you would have if you had actually edited through with the 422 high quality all the way through. So list, we go to my batch list or Command B. Just add files, so you can also drag them in, but just because I know Jeff's probably back there like, dude, why aren't you just doing it this way? So I'm going to add all these guys to my batch. If I want to join all the files together, sure. I generally like keeping them separated. If you join them together, it's like if you just recorded everything off of a DV tape and you're dropping it in a Final Cut and you're just cutting it all up. I don't like doing that just because whenever I do anything, I usually have multiple takes to it. And then I've usually got a timesheet or something written down on the side saying this is a bad take, so then when it's actually in Final Cut, I just remove that file, rather than having to go through Blade Tool and cut out that, or just sending it in and out. I wouldn't do that. Fixing your timecode breaks, that can help you if you have anything, as where you have a bad timecode. If you were recording and then you press it off and you press it again real fast, for some reason I had like a little jump in there. Sometimes you can fix that, it's not very perfect on it. Where you use that a lot more is when you're doing something where on the 7D, if you have a time shutter, which is about a $60 additional thing, or if you're just using your hand for it. And then every 5 to 7 seconds, you're just taking a picture, and you just keep doing it for about 30 minutes so you get a bulking of about 1,000 or so pictures. And then run through on QuickTime, merge them all into a video file, so now you have a time lapse. Fix your timecode break in there, and it actually forms timecodes for you. So that's the only other reason why I've ever seen the use of that. So export to QuickTime, yeah, hit OK. Where I want it to go to, new folder, ProRes, select that. Now that I'm in here, I can't remember where they have it. Here we go. MPEG mix. Now I'm drawing a blank. Here we go. So up at the top here is what I was saying. So you want to send it out to Apple ProRes 422 high quality, and then also send it out to proxy. They're both going to be around the. Can you see that at all, Jeff? On there. They're both going to be the same quality. Just the proxy is a much smaller file format. So if you're doing anything, if you're running through and doing color correcting, that type of stuff within Final Cut, sending it over to color, sending it to motion, back over, you're going to have significantly less, if any, render times. And it makes it so that if you're doing anything where you're just doing a 3-point color correction through the effects folder in Final Cut Pro 7 and dropping that on there, whereas if you're doing anything from your XJ1 footage drop straight in or whatever, or the 422, and you have to, as soon as you drop that on there, red bar comes up for rendering, and then you adjust it and all your points for it. This way, on the proxy, you don't have to do that. Or if you do, it's very, very fast, but I've made it a way to where I can have it until I get 4 video files layered up in my timeline, then I have to start rendering. But until I hit that, I've got no render time at all. And I can do everything in real time, edit a lot faster. And then at the end, just take all your footage, right click and just tell it that you want to disconnect the media. And then just select everything in your timeline again, right click on any file that's in there in your timeline, tell it that you want to reconnect the media. Now instead of selecting your proxy folder, select your high quality folder. Because you're still going to have MVI_0001.MOV, just there will be different codecs on there. One will be your high quality codec, one will be your proxy codec. And then you actually have something that's in there that's a higher quality. So you still have your true 1080p at whatever frame rate that you shot. You can export out, you have that master, and then from that you can compress down for if you're exporting to Apple TV, if you're exporting to anything for your iPod, iPhone, iPad, YouTube, Vimeo, DVD, whatever it may be. But that's really going to be one of the big things that's going to save a lot of time for you. Because I know, at least when I did a wedding and we shot on the 7D, we were merging to an XHA1, and every time I had to render it's because of 7D stuff, and then I had to start with the proxy. And it just sped it up a lot faster. And when you're dealing with a client, you really don't want to have a lot of time devoted when you're setting out X amount of time during your busy schedule already to be editing that file for them for, you know, half of that to be because of renders. Whereas instead this way you're just getting it done, you're knocking it out, and then if it's really a long render time because if you're unlimited or whatever it may be, set that to render, go to sleep, and wake up and have it done. And that way, all the time that you would have been spending instead, you're not just sleeping away, going and eating at Applebee's or whatever. So, makes it a lot faster. That's all I have for my talk. Do you guys have any questions I can answer or assist with? I feel bad because I know you came in a lot later and we went through some stuff.
That's quite all right. You know, I'm still new to it. I mean, I still have a lot to learn. You know, so that's fine.
Did you have any questions about the camera in particular?
Actually, no. I just wanted just to come in and just learn some additional information about the field I'm going into.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, is the camera for everyone? I mean, not really. There's a lot of hurdles that you are going to have to overcome if you do get into a DSLR. I spent a considerable amount on my rig, and I went into it literally a month after the camera came out on October 21st of 2009. So when I bought it, it came out in September. And I bought it because I saw videos from pre-release models that came out and Philip Bloom was posting up. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I like the quality, I jumped into it, I really wanted a DSLR picture camera. And I was like, well, this serves both purposes for me, so now I can take my photos and I can also expand on my video. Unfortunately for me, I was doing a lot of video stuff at that time, and I had to drop even more money than I planned to really get it ready for video. Namely, I've got 4 batteries for it, I've got 80 gigs worth of memory cards, and it just keeps going up and up and up with the other stuff I've had to buy for it. So it's definitely more of an expensive thing to get into, and I think that's one of the things that really needs to be known is that if you're buying it for a video camera, you can certainly do it, but you're really going to want to look into stuff too for stabilizing your footage, getting a different lens for it and other things too. Or make it so that you have it for doing the video, but you can also actually do the video and not just shoot clip or snippets at a time. If you are doing anything that's shorter, like a short film, whatever, you have time to drop, you know, that footage down. So having more cards than one doesn't really matter. And fortunately, you know, the Viditars have come down a lot too in price. You can get a 32 gig card, compact flash now, that runs at 400 megs a second for about $68 on B&H Photo Video. When I bought this camera, I bought a 16 gig card from Best Buy, and that card was $260. So prices have come down considerably for a lot of that stuff, and that's why when I saw how cheap the 32s were, I bought 2 of them instead. I was like, oh, I can make off with that like crazy. So I went for it. But that really is the thing. Spending $1,800 for the camera itself, you're going to have a picture camera, you're not going to have a video camera. And really you're going to want to invest about an extra grand for it, and then you're going to have a video camera. And the same is going to be said for your 5D Mark II or whatever else is that you go for, because you need to have those extra batteries, you need to have those memory cards and everything to make sure that you can actually use the camera and get away with using it.